Hi everyone, and welcome to today's session about shared parental pay in Sage 50 Payroll. My name is Sarah. It is just me today, but I will be keeping an eye on the Q&A panel throughout the session. So if you do have any questions as we go, feel free to pop them in there and I will try and pick them up towards the end of the session. So today we'll be exploring shared parental leave and pay. So what it is, who's eligible and how to manage it effectively within your payroll system. So we'll begin with a brief overview of the legislation. So things like eligibility criteria and the process employees need to follow if they do wish to take shared parental leave or pay. We'll also cover the documentation requirements just to ensure everything's in place from the start. Next, we'll move into the payroll processing side of things. So we'll talk through how to set up shared parental pay, and we'll look at a couple different scenarios, so where the partner is taking leave from the mother or main adopter, and the other side of things as well. So we'll jump into a demo on that as well. After that, we'll just give you a bit of a refresher on reclaiming shared parental pay, checking if you're eligible for small employers relief as well. And we'll finally wrap up with some troubleshooting and further support as well, just so you feel confident on handling any issues that might arise. So let's dive into an introduction to shared parental leave and shared parental pay. So shared SPL just stands for shared parental leave. So shared parental leave is the entitlement of up to 50 weeks of leave that can be shared between the parents of a baby or a newly adopted child. Now, SHPP refers to statutory shared parental pay, which can be paid for up to 37 weeks, depending on how much maternity or adoption leave has already been taken. Now, here's a little bit on how it works. So the mother or main adopter can choose to actually end their maternity or adoption leave early. And the remaining entitlement, so both leave and pay, can then be shared with their partner. This just gives families a little bit more flexibility on how they care for their child during that first year. For today's webinar, we will be focusing mainly on shared parental pay, as we'll be showing you how to process this through the payroll system. But just as a bit of a side note, the leave itself does follow a similar structure and can be split in the same way, just obviously with the leave, not all of it would be paid. A quick point on timing with that as well. So in the case of the birth mother, there is actually a mandatory 2-week period of maternity leave that must be taken immediately after the birth. So assuming maternity leave starts on the day that the baby is actually born, the earliest point at which shared parental leave can begin is after those 2 weeks. So that's why the entitlement is described as up to 50 weeks of leave and 37 weeks of pay, because it does just depend on how much leave has actually already been taken. In practice, though, many mothers will begin the maternity leave before the baby is born, which means the amount of leave and pay available to share will vary depending on the employee's specific circumstances. Just a bit of a historical note as well. So shared parental pay actually replaced additional statutory paternity pay back in April 2015. So if you've been working in payroll for a while, this is the updated system that's now actually in place. So let's take a little look at the eligibility criteria for shared parental pay. So as a general rule of thumb, employees may be eligible for statutory shared parental pay if one of the following applies. So for the mother or main adopter, if they were eligible for SMP or SAP if they're adopting, then they will also meet the eligibility criteria for shared parental pay. Now for the partner, if they are eligible for statutory paternity pay, either for birth or adoption, and both their partner qualifies for SMP or SAP or maternity allowance, then they too are going to be eligible for that shared parental payment. Now, in terms of payment, shared parental pay is paid at the standard rate for parental payments, which is currently £187.18 per week, or 90% of the employee's average weekly earnings. Now, remember, it is going to be the lower of the figure. So if they are a low paid employee, it will be the lower of the two amounts. So let's move on and talk a little bit about how employees actually access the shared parental payment. So there are a few key steps that need to happen before shared parental pay can actually begin. So the mother or the main adopter must officially actually end their statutory maternity pay or the statutory adoption pay. And that can either be done in one of two ways. So that can be done by either returning to work or by starting shared parental leave if that's their intention to share it with the partner. Alternatively, they can give what's called a binding notice. So that's going to be a formal declaration that they will end their maternity or adoption leave early. Once given, this notice is usually irreversible. So it is important that employees understand that commitment that is involved. Now, both parents must give at least 8 weeks written notice of their entitlement to the shared parental leave and pay, and also their intention to actually take it. So they do need to give you at least 8 weeks written notice of that. It is then up to each parent to inform their respective employers of how they actually plan to share the leave and pay. So that's going to include things like dates and duration of each leave that the parent intends to take. Now, in terms of actual documentation, there is a whole load of forms and templates available to support this process. It is actually linked on the handout as well, so definitely get those downloaded, and then you have the link handy if you do need to provide it to an employee. What we'll do is I'll just jump into a little bit of a demo just to show you a few different examples of those forms, because the ACAS website is really handy for this. These forms are just there really to help ensure you've got all of the necessary information and that both employers for each partner have what they need to process the leave or the pay correctly. So what I'll do, let me just drag these slides down. So if you do download the handout, this will be the link that it links to on the ACAS website. So we just take a real brief look at this. You can see if we scroll down, it has forms for each person. So you've got shared parental leave forms for where the mother has a maternity entitlement, adoption and surrogacy as well. And then they've got a template also for booking leave and cancelling and changing leave. But we will take a closer look at one of these forms a little bit later in the demo. But yeah, my recommendation, definitely have this bookmarked, because if that does apply to you, you're going to be able to provide them with exactly what they need, so you have all of the information to hand. So that's a bit on how the employees actually get the shared parental pay. Now, let's take a little look at when they can actually take it. Now, shared parental leave or pay can be taken in blocks, so maybe alternating between parents, together or staggered as well. So one of the key differences between shared parental leave and maternity or adoption leave is the flexibility. So each parent has the right to take up to 3 separate blocks of leave rather than actually having to take it in one continuous period. So because the leave is shared, it can be taken at different times by each parent or at the same time, meaning both parents could be off work together and receiving shared parental pay during that period as well. So let's run through a few examples just to illustrate how this might work in practice. So first example is just your traditional maternity or adoption leave. So typically the mother or the main adopter would take 39 weeks of paid leave and up to 52 weeks of total leave, often starting before the baby is born or by the due date. This leave is going to be taken continuously, so with no breaks in between. The partner would then take their statutory paternity leave, which can now actually be split into 2 weekly blocks. So that is something that's quite, relatively recently changed. So that's taken in either 2-week full block or 2 weekly blocks after the birth, and then have to take that in the 52 weeks after the due date. So that's the first example of just your traditional statutory maternity pay or adoption pay and your statutory maternity and paternity leave as well. So let's look at the next example. So example 2 would be a transition to shared parental pay. Now, if the parents decide to actually share the pay, the mother or the adopter would formally end their maternity or adoption leave early. At that point, the remaining leave and pay can be then transferred over to the partner. So, for instance, the partner could take the rest of their entitlement as shared parental leave and pay. So you can see there in this example, we've had the mother or adopter on SMP, SAP. We've then had the partner take their statutory paternity pay early on, but the mother or adopter has ended that early and the partner has taken the rest of the leave and pay. So they might, choose to take it as a continuous block, or they could maybe split it into separate blocks and mix it with some annual leave that might have accrued as well. So that is quite a common one. Now, example 3, they could maybe even take the leave together. So there may be also a period where both parents are off at the same time, sharing the leave and also receiving the statutory parental pay simultaneously. After that, one parent might return to work while the other one continues their leave. So in this example, you can see the mother or the adopter has ended their SMP early, but also made the transition to shared parental pay. And you can see the partner has also taken their statutory paternity pay and also made that transition to shared parental pay. Now, again, they can take it in different blocks, so they could maybe alternate as well. So in this instance, you've got the mother or adopter ending the maternity early, but transitioning straight onto shared parental pay. They then return to work, or it could be they use some annual leave, and the partner then also has a block of shared parental pay. So they're alternating blocks there as well. So good thing about shared parental pay is it really does give them that flexibility in that first year of birth. So now that we've covered how the leave can actually be taken, let's put this into practice. So I'm going to walk you through an example of setting up shared parental pay in your payroll system. What we'll do is we'll look at an example of both a partner and a mother or adopter as well. So let's get jumped into payroll for a bit of a demo. And then once we've looked at the demo, we'll run through a little bit of a recap as well. So I'm just going to pull my payroll up. Now I have received the relevant forms from my employee. So in this example, our employee has actually already completed the necessary maternity forms. And I'll just start things off by showing you a little bit what that looks like. Again, these forms that we had a brief look at before, they are downloadable as Word documents. And employees can fill in the appropriate ones depending on who has taken the shared parental leave. So I'll just pull that up now. Here's a quick breakdown of the forms required. So you can see up at the top, if both parents are taking the shared parental leave, you want to do forms 1, 2, and 4. For only the birth parent wants to take the shared parental leave, it's forms 1 and 2. And if only the partner is taking the shared parental leave, that is forms 1, 3, and 4. So in the first demo, we're setting this up for a partner that we employ, who is going to be taking over the remaining leave and pay from the mother, who's going to be returning to work early. So in this case, the relevant forms are 1, 3, and 4. It is important to note that these forms will go to the respective employers. You don't need to employ both parents. You'll only receive the forms that relate to your specific employee. However, the forms do include a signed declaration and details about the partner, which you are going to need when processing the payment. So let's just walk a little bit through the forms. So Form 1, this is a notice that the mother is curtailing the SMP early. So it includes details such as the baby's due date and birth date, and how many weeks of maternity leave and pay have been taken, and the date the SMP will end. So in our example, the mother has taken 33 weeks of SMP and has signed the form to confirm this. So this will go to her employer. And you can see they have signed it in plenty time. So they're given plenty of notice for the shared parental pay to take effect. Now, Form 2, it's not actually required in this example, as the birth parent is not going to be taking any shared parental leave. It is just going to be the partner. So we can disregard that one this time round. Now, Form 3, this is a notice from the birth parent confirming that they will not be taking shared parental leave, but the partner will be. So that also goes to the birth parent's employer. You can see that again is signed with plenty of notice. Now, finally, Form 4. This is a form that we receive as the partner's employer. So it is going to include similar details. So things like due dates, things like that. So you can see we've got the due date that matches the other form on there. We've got the end date of the maternity leave, and we have the total number of weeks that are going to be available that have been taken, when the maternity leave ends. So we have the start date of the SMP, we have the end date of the SMP, we have the total number of weeks that have been paid, so that the employee taken the maternity pay. Remember, this employee isn't the employee that's actually on our payroll. We employ the partner, but we know that the birth mother or the adopter has taken 33 weeks, which actually leaves 6 weeks left for us to take as shared parental pay. Now, this last section of this, you can see the total number of weeks created is 19, because remember, we'll give them the extra bit for the shared parental leave. However, the partner that's on my payroll is just going to take the pay. So they're only going to be taking the 6 weeks of the remaining shared parental pay. So they're going to take 6 out of the 19 weeks of leave. But the total number of shared parental pay that is created is 6, and they are going to take all of the 6. Now, the mother isn't actually going to be sharing any of that. They have just, returned to work early in this case. So they're going to be taking 0 amount of that shared parental pay. So because the mother's returning to work on the 6th of October, I will be entering the partner as taking the shared parental pay and leave from the 6th of October to the 16th of November. So they're going to take the full 6 weeks of the pay. I have everything I need here. I have my signature of the partner confirming they are going to be taking that. And they've signed it within plenty of time and submitted it to me within plenty of time of 8 weeks notice. So I have all of the documentation that I need to now enter this in for the partner. So it's the partner that's on my payroll. It's employee 5 that's going to be taking the shared parental pay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into employee and I'm going to go into the employee record. I'm going to go along to the absence tab. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to review the statutory paternity pay. So because this employee previously received that, we're going to go into that section of the record. So we can see here, if we go along, oops, wrong one there, SPP is the one I want. So if we go into statutory paternity pay, we can see they've had their 2 weeks back in February. That was paid out and they did qualify for it. We received the declaration, so we know that they're going to be eligible for statutory shared parental pay. Now, just something to note, a bit of a top tip here, is you do actually need the actually born on date in there in order to record the shared parental pay. If that is not entered, that is definitely going to cause you problems. So we can see here, if we check the date, so the actually born on date, that matches the forms I've received from the partner. So I'm going to go into this shared parental pay option just over on the right here. That's going to bring you to this window where you can tick that you've received the declaration. And we now want to record these two top boxes. So we need to record how many weeks are available for shared parental pay or leave and how many weeks are actually being taken. So there are 6 weeks of paid leave available and the employee intends to take all 6 weeks. Now these two figures don't have to be matching. It could be if they are sharing it with the mother or the adopter, that these two figures are going to be different. But as we know in our example, the mother has fully returned to work. The partner will be taking the entire remainder of the shared parental pay. So we've got those 2 boxes filled out. Now, number of weeks being recorded, don't have to worry about that one. This will actually automatically populate for you. So that's going to automatically populate when you record the shared parental pay within the absence diary, but we'll take a little look at that later in the demo. So next thing I want to do is I'm going to fill out the partner details. And this again will be on your form. And then I can press OK. So that's now my shared parental pay all entered. I can OK out of here and save and close the record. Now I'm just going to go back to payroll and I'm going to go into my enter payments. Now there's a couple different ways you can record this shared parental pay. So you could do it from your SSP parental leave tab. So you've got an option to record shared parental pay here, or you can do it from the absence tab within the record. Now I'm just going to record it within enter payments for now. And I'm going to put in the date range that was specified within the form I've received from my employee. So they are going to take that from the 6th. And they're going to take the full 6 weeks. So that is going to be to the 16th of November. Now I've got my dates entered, and also just something to note, you do need to enter it in full blocks, block weeks for shared parental pay. So they can't take part of a week, it does need to be in full weekly blocks. You can pop a comment on if you want as well. And this is something that's a little bit different from the rest of your statutory parental payments, is it does need to be recorded within the diary, this one. Brilliant. So that's it recorded within the absence diary. Now, this will show as a lowercase r, very similar to SSP would show as a lowercase. What will happen is when you update your records, they will turn to uppercase once they've actually been entered in. So once they've been saved and processed, it will make that change as you process along. So I'm just going to save that within my enter payments. Now, if we go to the summary tab, you can see I've got some shared parental pay being paid out there. Now, another thing I do want to show you all, if we go back into the employee record, along to absence, and into SPP. If we now go back into shared parental pay, what you'll see now is that third box for weeks recorded is now automatically populated. So you can see that's now all matching. You don't have to record all 6 weeks straight away if you don't want to. If you want to record it, weekly blocks up until your process date, you by all means can do. It's totally up to you what you want to do when it comes to actually recording it, as long as it's in weekly blocks. So that's shared parental pay all set up for my partner. It's going to save and close my enter payments. So that's ready now to be processed. Now I want to move on to my second example. So that's where the birth parent is the employee themselves, and they're going to be taking shared parental leave also. So in this example, the birth parent has actually decided to end their maternity leave early and share the remaining leave and pay with their partner, who happens to work for another employer. So that means we, as the birth parent's employer, will receive the relevant forms to process the statutory shared parental pay. So we'll begin by going into the employee record. So in this case, it is employee 7. And I'm just going to go back into the employee record. And we'll head back into the absence tab, just like we would for any other statutory payment. So first step, again, is to review the original statutory payment. So that's the maternity pay. And before we proceed, we need to make sure the date of birth has been recorded, which it has. And we know that the employee has taken the mandatory 2 weeks of maternity leave as well. So they have actually decided to switch to shared parental leave after 6 weeks of maternity leave. So we're going to enter the 29th of September as the return to work date. So that's going to mark the point at which maternity leave ends and shared parental leave begins. So you can see as soon as I've entered that return to work date, it's now unlocked this option for me. So step number 2 is to confirm the remaining entitlement. So once we enter the return to work date, the system will automatically calculate the remaining entitlement. So you can see 33 weeks there remain to be paid. So that's the amount that's actually available to be shared between the mother and the partner. Now we can go in to enable the shared parental pay. So I'm going to tick for the declaration. We have received all the relevant forms. We already know that 33 weeks are available. And according to the forms that we've received for this one, the employee, the mother, is intending to take 13 of those weeks. Which then you can assume the remaining 20 weeks is then going to be taken by the partner. But since we're only responsible for our employee, we only need to put that 13 weeks they've declared in there. Again, number of weeks recorded, that is going to be populated automatically with this one. Now I'm going to put in the partner details. from here, now that I've got my shared parental pay set up within the record, it is just a matter of now recording the leave dates in the diary, just as you would with, statutory sick pay, for example. So I'm going to save that for employee 7. I'm going to go back into payroll and enter payments. I go along to summary, SSP or parental leave. I can now go in and start recording my shared parental payments. So it might be that you want to record all of it in one go if they're taking it in one block. It might be that they're taking it, in blocks of 2 weeks or different weekly blocks, because remember, they do have that flexibility to take up to 3 different blocks of the shared parental pay or leave. So another way that you can also enter this is you can also enter this in the absence diary as so. So could do it also highlighting the cells. Now absence, shared parental and full day. So that's just a couple different ways that you can also record it. So that's it on actually setting up the shared parental pay and leave. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to record a couple weeks for this employee. Now, because I haven't recorded full weeks, just a little top tip I did touch upon earlier, it will give you this error message. So you do want to be recording it in weekly blocks. That's something maybe more to bear in mind if they are taking it in alternating blocks of leave or pay. I'm just going to record the 1 week for now and save that within the employee record. And you can see I've recorded my 1 full week and it is pulled through into my enter payments there. So that's my 2 employees all set up for shared parental pay. What we'll do now is let's run through a little bit of a recap of what we've just seen. I know it's a lot to take in and there's quite a lot of different ways that they can split the leave. So I do just want to recap that to really cement what we've went through today. So we have, for the mother or adopter, we've entered the SMP or the SAP return to work date. Or for the partner, we have checked the SPP details to make sure they're eligible. We've then went on to enter the shared parental pay details. So we've looked at the form that we've received from our employee. We've got the declaration. We've then entered the weeks available and the weeks being taken by the respective employee. And we've also entered the partner's details. Once we've entered the shared parental pay details, we've then recorded the absence. So we've looked at recording that through diary entry, through other shared parental, and we've looked at recording it using the cells within the diary as well. We've then looked at processing the shared parental pay. So we've checked a process date, we've checked the amounts. From there, you can adjust any payments. So we will take a look before we update our records and look at reclaiming payments, a couple different options. So you can use Makeup Basic or you could manually adjust as well. So what we'll look at to wrap things up is reclaiming statutory payments. So let's get jumped back into payroll one last time. So I've got my employees entered. Now, it might be an employee doesn't actually get any top up for the pay. So it might just be that you want to zero out the payment that you've got there. Or it could be that they do get it topped up. So you can use what's called the Makeup Basic option if you do top up to full pay. You can find that in the summary tab. I go to Makeup Basic, select yes. What that'll do, that will reduce my salary to account for the statutory payment that I've got being processed. Now I'm ready to actually update my records now. Before I do that, I am actually going to check if I am eligible for small employers relief as well. So with any parental payment, you will be able to reclaim. So most employers are going to be able to reclaim 92%. But if you qualify for small employers relief, you can in fact reclaim 108.5%. Now, if you're not too sure if you're eligible, really easy way you can check through payroll. So you qualify if your total class 1 NICs are 45,000 or less in the tax year before the qualifying week. So easiest way to check that is just pop your processing date back into last tax year. Go to your P32. And just run that for the entire tax year. Now it's always going to be line 4 that you're looking at. And I can see straight away that's under 45,000. So what I can do now is I can pop my date back and I can go and double check my company and settings before I have updated my records. So I've got my flag to say that I'm eligible for small employers relief. So I'm now going to go ahead and lock those records in. I'm also going to submit my FPS. And remember, the partner's details for the shared parental pay will actually be submitted within the FPS as well. So that information will all be received by HMRC. So definitely important to make sure you have everything filled out and get those forms from your employees. So I've got my last updated date and my last FPS date is matching. I'm now ready to send my employer payment summary to reclaim my shared parental pay. So I can do that either from my link section or I can go to e-submissions and employer payment summary. So as with any statutory payment, I am going to select the first option to recover statutory payments. Just going to go next. I've had a couple people this tax year, so some maternity, some paternity, but now you can see I have my shared parental pay on here as well with my small employers relief. So to wrap the demo up, let's get that all submitted. And this will tell HMRC exactly what it is they need to reduce my bill by. So that's all submitted successfully. If I look at my P32 as well, you can see lines 10 and 11 if you are processing shared parental pay. It's 10 and 11 that you want to be looking at, and we can see we've got the amount there and we have the NIC compensation as well. So we'll be able to get that back plus 8.5% more when it comes to our small employers relief. So that's it for the demos today. So just a bit of a recap again with that one. We have looked at reclaiming the statutory payment. So we had a check if we qualify for small employers relief. We did, because our class 1 NICs were less than 45,000 in the tax year before the qualifying week. We've sent our APS to inform HMRC. We've made sure our box is ticked in our company settings. We've looked at our P32 and we've submitted our APS. And again, that's lines 10 and 11 for your P32. And just a bit of a note on the EPS is you must submit this by the 19th of the following calendar month. So I would have for my October payroll until the 19th of November to get that submitted. Good thing about your EPS though is it is a year-to-date submission. So if for whatever reason you forgot to send one or you maybe missed one month, don't worry too much, because next time round, anything that's missed will be picked up as it is a cumulative year-to-date submission. So I want to finish things off just by running through a little bit of troubleshooting. So just some common scenarios and problems with shared parental pay. So it could be that shared parental pay isn't calculating. Now, a big one with this one is SMP needs to have the actually born on date entered. Now, when you're recording statutory maternity pay kind of to start off with, you don't actually need to enter that date for the maternity pay to pay out. However, if they are then making the transfer to shared parental pay, it does need to have that date within the employee record. So nice easy solution for that one is just into the employee record, into absence, into SMP, and pop the actually born on date in there. Now, another one that catches a lot of people out is, was the original statutory payment processed manually? So if for whatever reason, might be that you're paying arrears, or that's maybe one of the more common reasons. So if the main reason you have done the original statutory payment manually, so whether that be adoption pay, paternity pay, or the maternity pay, if those original payments were processed manually, the shared parental pay does need to be processed manually also. So if you're not too sure why it's calculating, always worth checking within the record of the original statutory payment to see if that box for manual has been ticked. If it has, then solution for that one, you just need to process the shared parental pay manually as well. So that's it for shared parental pay for today. I did want to finish things up by running through some further support, and I've got a bit of time for some questions as well. So if you do have any, make sure to pop them into the Q&A. So we do have some upcoming webinars for the rest of this month. So we've got attachments on Thursday the 23rd, minimum wage check Friday the 24th. We have a month end on the 29th and a maternity pay on the 31st as well. So if you haven't already got signed up for that, make sure to get signed up and hope to see you on there. We do want to touch on the Help Centre as well. It is a really great resource, so you can access that really easily by clicking on the help icon in Sage 50 Payroll, or via the web by going to sage.co.uk/help. You can access technical support guides, recorded on demand webinars, and info on how to get in touch with the team if you do need to. Do you want to shout out Sage Uni as well? You can do anything on here from bite-sized bits of learning to full certification, so you do have that flexibility to really do it at your own pace. It's totally free to set up an account. Just go to sageu.com and have an explore. Now, as promised, I do have a bit of time for questions, so I will stick around for the next few minutes or so just to see if there are any questions that pop through. If you are leaving us at this point, you will receive a short survey. If you do have 2 seconds to fill that out, that really would be appreciated. But I will pop on a mute for now. Any questions, make sure to get them sent through, and I will see you all shortly to get the session wrapped up. Hi again, everyone. I hope you've all enjoyed today's session. I haven't had any questions came through. It has been a bit of a quiet one today. So I will close the session down in the next minute or so. As you exit, you will see a short survey. If you please can take a moment to fill that out. I would love to hear what you thought, what worked well, and what could be improved, so we can keep making these sessions even better for you. You will receive a follow-up email later today. It'll have a link to the webinar recording on there and information on how to register for future sessions. But thank you again for joining me today. Hopefully I will see you all again very soon. It is goodbye for now.